Hi, everyone. Welcome to the New Canaan High School Courant podcast. It's been quite a while since our last talk, but welcome back to Page to Screen, where we dive into books, their themes, and how these stories transform once they hit the big screen. I'm Molly.
And I'm Claire. Today we'll be talking about a classic and a book I'm sure everyone was forced to read in their junior English class, The Great Gatsby.
The infamous book was written by F. Scott Fitzgerald and is known for their wild plots and creative characters, but beyond the drama of Gatsby, Daisy, and the mysterious green light across the bay, the novel really digs into some deeper themes like the American dream, wealth versus happiness, and the illusions people create for themselves.
But the 2013 screen version starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Tobey Maguire is widely known for the accurate representation almost 100 years after the book's publishing.
We'll also talk about what makes this story still relevant today, why nearly 100 years later, high schoolers everywhere are still cracking open The Great Gatsby. So let's dive right in. Okay, so I think the character we all should start with is Jay Gatsby, the main character.
Definitely.
And the reason I think this movie is so famous is because Leonardo DiCaprio is in his prime during this, and
for sure, it's definitely it's an easy catch, you know.
It's not hard to look at, and
no,
the movie's very fun
not
to watch,
all.
and he's very fun to look at.
Yeah,
but
for sure,
I think in the book he's very, very romantic and mysterious, which is why people love him, and he is so obsessive, which kind of like overruns his romantic traits. But in the movie, he wants to, Leonardo DiCaprio, the way he acts in a very certain way, and he wants to emphasize like the charisma and the mysteriousness that Jay Gatsby has, I think.
I could not agree more, first of all, with your opinion on his looks. Great looking character. But something that definitely drew me to him as a character, like personality-wise, is like his obsession with the past and sort of like yearning and like staying back there makes him more of like a tragic case rather than like romantic. Like you feel bad, but you're also like, this guy needs to like get it together kind of. I mean, he has a lot to think about, but
it's been years and he hasn't stopped thinking about it.
Yeah, no, he's yearning.
But I think people love that. I think a lot of
course, because it's relatable.
In our day and age, like I think people in our generation love that he yearns, because in the movie it's not subtle at all that he is so obsessed with her. In the book, I think it's a little more subtle in a way that he tries to hide it because
you have to look for it.
Yeah, but in the movie it is so clear and you see it from the first scene he's in.
I know. Totally agree. And the movie sometimes honestly turns him more into a movie star figure than a tragic one. That's where I think there's a little bit of a disconnect with the character.
Yeah.
I think Jay in the book was sort of like a tortured, suffering soul. Like he was definitely having a really hard time. But in the movie, he sort of just, to me, seemed like big shot, like Wall Street.
Everyone
type vibe.
thought he was just like, everyone was obsessed with him and with his money and his wealth.
He had a lure and a look about him that I think everyone wanted. And I think in the movie, especially casting Leonardo, made it that much easier to do.
And I think, compared, him and Nick could not be more different, especially in the movie. In the book, he was so annoying and he made me so mad. He was the most unreliable character ever.
I agree.
And he was very thoughtful, and since the book is in his point of view, we hear those thoughts. But in the movie, it's more, there's a lot of voiceover narration to hear those thoughts. But I think that takes away from his thoughtfulness and his creativeness in a way.
I agree. I think he's pretty judgmental, honestly.
Very.
There's a lot of like just sort of him chiming in, and his narration sort of shapes everything like based on his judgments, biases, and reflections. And I think in the movie, his narration definitely like keeps the story moving at a good pace, but definitely there's like a loss of moral tension there because it's hard when you're taking it from the page to the screen.
And the way he treats Daisy in the movie is so different than the way he treats Daisy in the book, I think. Because Daisy is a very important character in the book, but once it gets to the movie, she's just has charm. And the fact that she's a woman in this time period, like it says, I think the film romanticized her a lot more than it did in the book. I think in the book she was a stronger character.
I agree. When you say stronger, do you mean more prevalent or do you mean willpower?
I think she had more willpower over Gatsby, and I think she held herself against him more.
Accountable.
But I think in the movie, she is so romanticized, and she's just looked at as I don't really know how to explain it, but I just think like the way Nick treats her in the movie, I think she would never let him treat her that way than he does in the book.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I never would have thought about it like that. I mean, in the book, she's so charming. Mm-hmm. I mean, reading it now in 2025, almost 2026, I'm like, this woman is setting us back generations of progress. But I mean, for the time, makes sense. But she's so careless, and she's constantly like retreating back to money and like the funding that she knows she can lean back on. And I think that sort of like shows her weakness. She definitely has strengths for sure. I think she's a strong character, but her reliance on money really, like, I don't know, opens up the perspective of the time and of like the people in the book.
And I think her reliance on money, I think she is one of the main ideas of the theme, especially with the American dream. I think, like, from the outside, she has American dream because they don't know how her husband really does act. Mm-hmm. And I think her not leaving him and her is what a lot of people had issues with. Mm-hmm. And I also think it showcases so many women in that time period, which is like one of the main reasons I think they still make us read it is now in English, because I had to read it last year in English class, because they want us to show how that time period for the American dream was so different than it is now.
Yep. And gender roles, everything was so drastically different, thank God. But the constant evolving was just an interesting perspective for sure to read from. But in the movie, I honestly think that like the director really like softened her character.
Yeah.
Making her like less cold, if that makes sense. And I think it kind of took away some depth from her, because I feel like Fitzgerald intended for her to be more hard-headed. And I feel like the movie sort of just like added a layer and a sense of sympathy on her behalf that like not doesn't exist. I mean, I'm sure she has sympathetic tendencies, but in the book, I remember thinking like she's a hard-headed woman. Like she's pretty intense sometimes.
I also think the movie, that's the actress's way of how she portrayed
interpreted
Daisy.
It.
Like she portrayed her very romantic and very just looked at in a certain way, and she didn't really try to hide that. Compared to Tobey Maguire portraying Nick, he wanted to show all of Nick's emotions, and he tried to do that. He showed his anger, which
effectively, I believe.
Yeah, very effectively. He showed his anger, he showed his judgment, I think, very well, and how Nick does judge in the book. Compared to Daisy, I think the way she portrayed her was just very set on the certain gender roles in that time.
Yeah. So just to sort of like redirect to one of the last characters we are going to discuss today, Tom Buchanan, I think is sort of a really overlooked character.
Very.
I think in the book and in the movie, he represents old money very well, completely. And I think he's so smart and calculated that like his ability to manipulate everyone sort of like drew me to him as a reader and a watcher, because I've both watched and read.
Yeah.
And it sort of was like, he's not a great guy, but like, wow, like he has so much depth to him as a character, and like what's not to be intrigued about. And I feel like the film, especially watching it, it captured his like aggression and his grit.
Very quickly too. Like literally in the first couple scenes, which they did not do in the book. Yeah,
and I think that just like quickly was like, okay, Tom, bad guy. That's who you're going to associate bad guy with. When I feel like in the book, it was more of like a slow burn. You sort of had to figure out like, is Nick being honest? Jay, like what's going on with Jay? Who's Daisy? What's Tom's what are Tom's motives? But yeah, I think the movie was a little more direct.
I think the reason they showcased it that quickly is they also definitely assumed that people knew how Tom was going to act because the book is so famous. But they didn't want a slow burn into it, because I think the way he acted also affected Daisy's character of romanticism, which is one of the main reasons why I think the American dream in the movie is so different than in the American Dream in the book. Like the movie, it's so visually glamorous and money.
It's enticing.
But in the book, there's the question of, does Daisy have the American Dream because her husband is awful? Yeah. But in the movie, it just shows she does because she has money. And same with Jay Gatsby.
Yeah, there's such a big difference in like looking for what you have to find. You said we're talking about themes today.
Yeah.
I feel like obviously the most obvious is the American Dream. And I feel like I knew what the American Dream was prior to reading the book. Like as a junior in high school, I think everyone knows what the American Dream is, whether you learn it in world history or American history, like whatever. But my interpretation of it was completely morphed, I feel like, because the book sort of like tears it apart as Gatsby like builds his dream on lies and sort of like shows that like the foundation of this like so sought after life like isn't all like beauty and painless. And I feel like his mansion and all the parties like looking so grand and glamorous sort of were really just part of the foundation that was desperation. And I think that underlined the overall like populist ideal of American Dream and also like him as a character solely.
I also think one of the a main theme is the obsession and love Gatsby had for Daisy in the books, because it is like the main idea of his obsession, and it's also very tragic in the book, and it seemed like it's doomed from the start. But in the movie, I think the concept of visuals and very loud music kind of overtakes it, and it very much romanticizes this theme and shows that maybe it's not doomed from the start. It kind of like raises that question if his obsession will turn into love for them or if it's nothing.
Yeah, so do you think that the movie criticizes or celebrates the dream?
I think it, in a way, celebrates it. I think it tries to overlook the dream with all the music and with the colors and with the dancing. And I think that idea shows that maybe like the dream from the outside. I think in the movie, we are looking at the dream from the outside for most of the parts because of all the money and all the colors.
When there are a lot of internal factors that contribute to it. Yeah, I would totally agree. And I feel like that like moves us into like the themes of class and social status. Like there are obviously so many different characters to keep track of that are all in so many different points of their life, or they're alike competing in the same life. And I feel like Fitzgerald did a really good job sort of separating like who belonged and who didn't, like new money versus old money. I remember that stuck with me very like importantly. And I feel like Gatsby was shown as a character who can buy everything except for other people's acceptance.
Yes.
And I feel like deep down, like his insecurities really showed sort of like where the importance lied in the book and in the movie. And I feel like the movie really just showed this through like his fashion and like his house, and like how East Egg was so clean and sought after and West Egg was loud and chaotic and sort of just like falling behind as a society.
Yeah. I think in the movie, also going back to the visual aspects, I think they overlook the social status so much and some of like the societal critiques that Gatsby has, because in the book, that is such a main reason why.
It's a lot more subtle in the book.
Why Daisy is like second guessing if she wants him back, because she does. I think she does still have love for him. But
she does.
It's the societal expectations that she does not want to go against.
Yeah. It's so interesting, like to see like the romance play out in the book versus how I perceived it in the movie, because when you get to watch two actors like really connect with like chemistry on the screen, it's sort of just like, oh wow, like I never would have seen them, I never would have put Daisy's face to her face, or Jay's face to his face, and like seeing it together just really all makes it make sense. And I mean, I could tell when I was reading that they were deeply in love and there was a lot of layers there, but I feel like when we're talking in terms of like page to screen, I feel like the screen effectively is more romantic to me.
Definitely, because the movie is romanticized overall way more than the book is, because of the chemistry the characters have with each other. Even like the chemistry that Nick and Jay have in like a friendship way of like Gatsby has so much care for Nick, and I feel that is obviously shown in the books, but I feel like their chemistry with each other and like their conversations, I think that is shown a lot more.
Yeah. And I feel like in the book, like regarding chemistry, I sort of picked up Gatsby's love as like material for Daisy. It's sort of like an idea.
Yes, definitely.
Sort of like, I love Daisy, but does he really know her? Like her life with Tom and everything. Like
he hasn't, like in the beginning of the book, he hasn't spoken to her in years, and he's just fixated on this idea of her. Yeah,
it's honestly a really unhealthy way to go about it, if I'm being honest. But in the book, I feel like that illusion sort of like makes the story that much more tragic because it's so sad thinking about like the American dream and like the time they were in and like the social societal divides, but also like this is like a sad romance.
Yeah, definitely.
Like they are suffering completely without, I mean, Daisy more nonchalantly, I think, than Jay, but Jay is sort of just kind of like yearning and being like, oh, I want her to come to my party. Well,
because he's fantasized about it so much. You. Like he's fantasized about it so much.
I know.
Which is one of the main reasons. Obsessed. One of the main reasons I think everyone in our day and age loves this movie and loves the portrayal of this movie because it shows his yearning so well.
And I feel like a lot of people resonate with it.
A lot. Like with modern day relationships, with family relationships, with romantic. Like I think all like his love for her and his obsession is more of just a fixated and fantasized relationship, which I think a lot of people have nowadays, especially with social media. They start to fantasize what it would be like.
Yeah.
But I just think it's so hard.
Oh, totally. It creates a standard that is just like unattainable.
Yeah.
And I feel like in the movie it leans farther towards like passionate romance, which is heightened obviously by the music and the drama and like the theatrics. But like when you're listening to the music along with like the presentation of the characters, you just sort of like feel something, and it's like something is evoked within you, like by the director, by the producers, sound production, like that's just how it works. And I feel like with a book, it requires a little bit more imagination.
Yeah.
Just to like put yourself in that position.
I also think the mood and the tone in the movie is way more energetic and way more romantic and very like flashy, I think is the word, visually and just like emotionally. Compared to the book, it's definitely more nostalgic and like reflective and showing the difference in the time period compared to now.
Oh, it's so different. I mean, in the book, it's definitely like the jazz age, lots of champagne, glitter, beautiful and rotten at the same time. But then in the movie, obviously it's in the jazz age because it's a recreation, but there's almost like a hip hop, like weird, like modernization of it, which to me sort of ruined the movie a little bit.
Yeah.
Not ruined, but it's definitely changed my idea of it. I was like, oh, like I didn't
changed my perspective on the time period, I think, in a way, because it was so, from the outside, it was just so colorful. When in the book, I think people know that none of them are actually living the American dream. They'll just never admit that. In the movie, it's just so hard to tell.
Yeah. But I think the chaos of the movie matches the chaos of the book, and I think it sort of just like drowns out like everything. Yeah. It made it so overwhelming, to be honest. But I mean, if you can keep up with it, I feel like.
Yeah. I think that wraps it up for today's talk. I think that was a great dive into the book compared to the movie. And thank you for listening to Page to Screen. Tune in next time.